the rest of his life.
Love that.
He was very
He's like, see you guys.
I know. Peace out. He was very philanthropic during the First World War, and in return was made the first Viscount Astor for his contributions to the war effort. So I guess he got the last laugh. He would own Cliveden, which is, I think it was originally a part of the Duke of Buckingham's estate, and then he lost it.
Okay.
And it is still there today.
Yep.
It's a hotel. And it was also the scene of a very notorious political sex scandal, the Profumo affair in the 1960s. Okay. I'm sure that we will do it at some point. He also owned Hever Castle, which was where Queen Anne Boleyn was born and raised. And there are still Viscount Astors to this day. I traced it through Wikipedia, and the current Viscount Astor is the 4th Viscount Astor, and is a William Waldorf Astor III, because we got to keep the name, man.
Okay.
So now we're finally to JJ. As the only son and last child, he was pretty spoiled by both Caroline and his 4 older sisters. He attended the best schools, including Harvard.
Wait, this is the 4th?
This is John Jacob Astor IV. JJ.
Oh, he was the one that was the last.
Yep, I know. It's
4
so confusing.
girls and a boy.
Right.
And this is the what was the other branch called? Starts with a B.
I don't know which one.
The
back house.
Back house.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't really a different branch. It was just a different name.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they were.
Yeah.
Okay.
He kind of. It's really strange because it was all. I think it was. I guess because there were 2 sons and that they jumped a generation. They didn't recycle the same name over again.
They needed a different.
Like technically,
is that a middle name?
John Jacob Astor III should have had John Jacob Astor IV.
The 4th.
But he
didn't.
He had William Waldorf Astor, and then William Backhouse Astor just jumped over the Backhouse and took John Jacob Astor IV as his son.
That's why it's confusing.
Yeah.
So, right, because when we were talking about JJA the Third, I just assumed that was JJ the Fourth's father, and it is not. They should not be allowed to do that.
Well, should write them a letter and let them know.
Well, I'm just saying that in history, you can't go from you can't have the same names.
Yeah.
Go from a 3rd to a 4th when it's the uncle, not the father, right? Because that's his uncle.
Right.
Okay.
Actually, that's a really good point.
I quit.
Adrienne's over.
I'm leaving.
You're done.
I'm done.
See you later.
I'm gonna go read a book.
JJ, who was also known as Jack, attended the best schools, including Harvard, and he was actually a bit of a geek. He patented several small inventions, including a bicycle brake.
No.
And helped develop
like
the turbine engine.
Oh.
Yeah. So he was actually quite smart.
Okay.
In 1891, he made a grand match to a Philadelphia heiress and socialite named Ava Willig. And in true Scandal Sheets fashion, I have newspaper articles.
Excellent.
From the Stark County Democrat in Canton, Ohio.
Favorite part of Scandal Sheets is when Caroline reads from these totally ridiculous backwoods town newspapers.
Hey now.
Like big time stories. Because wouldn't you think it would be like the New York Times or the Chicago Tribune?
Right.
Or whatever. Like, I don't know. They seem to always happen in the Midwest or just very unexpected places.
Right.
So please proceed with the article from
a
place that probably doesn't get scandalous news very often.
Well, I do have to give Canton a shout out because that's where my grandmother's from. And
why do I know Canton, Ohio?
Because the Football Hall of Fame is there.
Okay.
And my grandfather helped survey the Football Hall of Fame.
No. Mm-hmm. I like that. Yep. That's good history.
That's how he met my grandmother.
No.
He dropped out of college and moved to Canton to help his brother, who was also surveying, and worked for the early urban planning department for the city of Canton.
That is super cool.
Before getting married to my grandmother.
For those of us like me who are not geographically inclined,
south of Cleveland
is nearly due south, slightly southeast of Cleveland, Ohio, not by much, and it's very close to Akron.
Yep.
And it is slightly north and west of Pittsburgh, so it is not terribly far from the Pennsylvania border.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I wish we could do the Cyberlings house in Akron. Stan Highwood is amazing. Tudor Revival house.
Firestone, there's a lot of stuff that, like, industrial-wise that was going on
it was Goodyear
Ohio.
Tire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Goodyear Tires.
Yeah, there's a lot of good architecture.
It was really funny because I made my dad and my stepmom stop there when we were visiting the area when I was back in college, and my dad's worked for Michelin for over 30 years, so I guess it was a little bit of going to the rival company's house, but it's a super cool house anyway.
All right.
Newspapers from the Stark County Democrat in Canton, Ohio.
Yes.
To eclipse them all, elaborate arrangements for the Astor-Willing wedding. The coming Mrs. John Jacob Astor to be Queen of New York Society. Only 150 persons will witness the ceremony. The reception will be one of the largest ever held in the United States. Floral decorations to surpass anything ever seen. New York, February 16th. Mrs. William Astor has concluded all the arrangements for the wedding of her son, John Jacob Astor, and Miss Ava Willing, which is to take place at the home of the bride's parents in Philadelphia on Tuesday, the 17th.
Oh, Philly.
Getting married on a Tuesday.
Weird.
Yeah. But I guess if you don't have jobs, you can take off and get married on a Tuesday.
Well, that's true, and that's an interesting point. Why do we have
weddings on weekends?
Weddings on weekends now? Because why does it matter? And if you're...
Because we have to be off on the weekends.
Correct. Yeah. Interesting.
So, while the approaching wedding is of deep interest to Philadelphians, it is a matter of even greater interest to swell New Yorkers, as the coming Mrs. John Jacob Astor will eventually be the queen leader of all that pertains to society in this city. Under these circumstances, the arrangements for the wedding have been fashioned and directed by Mrs. William Astor, contrary to the usual custom, which places these duties in the hands of the bride's parents. The wedding ceremony will be performed by the Reverend Dr. McVicker of the Church of the Holy Trinity. Number 511 South Broad Street. The ceremony will take place at 1 o'clock presently in the presence of 150 guests, most of whom will be New Yorkers. Mrs. Astor's visiting list numbers almost 1,400, and as it is impossible to have all these at the ceremony, it was arranged Saturday to have 2 special trains leave New York on the day of the wedding. One to carry 100 people and the other to carry 1,250. That's a big train.
Yeah, it is.
Elaborate preparations have been made for floral decorations at the Willing House, and it is expected that they will surpass anything of any kind ever seen in the country. Thousands of rose orchids, lilies of the valley, tulips, and daffodils will be placed in every room of the house, and the walls from floor to ceiling will be one mass of sweet perfumed flowers. It is estimated that $20,000 will be spent in floral decorations alone.
Even then, that's,
a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
After the ceremony, the wedding breakfast will be served. Pinard, the ultra-fashionable New York caterer, has been secured for this very important part of the ceremony and has made several trips to Philadelphia to plan out the arrangements. 20 pink tables set in pink with pink roses and pink azaleas will be placed in the library.
That's excessive.
Music room and large central hall of the house. The tables and silverware will be sent by Pinard from New York specially. And the dining room, which will be ornamented by whole chimes of wedding bells.
Oh.
The bridal table will be set with 18 covers. Everything about the table will be pure white. Only white bride's roses, white orchids, white violets being used.
JJA the fourth was...
JJA, is that what we're going with?
Yeah, yes. He was a pretty handsome guy.
He was described as gangly, like...
He looks pretty thin.
Yeah,
he has a long, aquiline nose, but he has really pretty eyes.
Yeah, he was attractive, I think. We'll make sure and post a picture.
I didn't know anything about what he looked like. A photographic portrait that was done of him wearing an interesting getup that looked more like a costume.
Yeah, that was for the Bradford Fish.
Oh, now I can't find it. Darn
ball
it.
Was
he almost looked like Ponce de Leon, like it was. He had a striped tunic and a cape.
He was supposed to be some kind of like Spanish conquistador or something like that. Yeah,
that makes sense.
And a lot of historians say that this Bradley Fish ball was just totally crazy, over the top spending of money.
Sure.
I think that might have been the one where the woman showed up with the skinned cats on her costume, which scarred me for life when I saw it. They were real cats.
Shut up.
Yes.
Nope.
Oh, yeah. But anyway,
Yeah.
most social historians say that ball was pretty much the end of the Gilded Age because it took such negative press about the expenditures. People were not just interested anymore about hearing about these wealthy people having a good time. It was like, suddenly, these people are kind of wasteful. So, the couple returned to New York City from a 5-month-long honeymoon through Europe, because that's what they do. And Jack took up the mantle of the family businesses, following his father's death in 1892, which was the next year. He actually turned his hand to hotel building following the successful completion of the Astoria Hotel in 1897. He even laid down the family feud with his cousin William Waldorf, and the two hotels were joined by exterior corridors to become the Waldorf Astoria Hotel.
This is the one that's not even in the country.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And this Waldorf Astoria is not the Waldorf Astoria that's there today. They actually tore down the first one to build the Empire State Building.
Oh.
So that's where that is now.
Oh.
The current Waldorf Astoria was built in the 20s or the 30s.
It was that late? The
Yeah.
one that's on Central Park?
Mm-hmm. Jack would go on to build the 18-story St. Regis Hotel in Times Square. Now, naturally, he did this after his cousin William Waldorf built the 17-story Neverland Hotel across the way. And for a while, the St. Regis was the tallest building in the world. I would imagine 18 stories in the early 1900s would have been a pretty impressive feat. And he did, once again, designed a lot of the mechanicals for the building. He even designed like a central vacuum system for it.
Wait, I thought that tower at Madison Square Garden was 40 stories high.
I think we had this discussion when we did this, whether or not is it really considered a building.
Yeah, it was occupiable.
Okay.
I don't know. I hear a lot of those superlatives and they don't.
That's true. They do.
I feel like they don't
those.
do their research.
Right. And
I'm like, in the world.
this was the St. Regis,
What?
the St. Regis's website that said
true.
that. So
No, liars.
liars. Just throw it down.
I'm never staying there.
So yeah, lots of really cool things like central vacuum in the early 1900s. So yeah, he was, like I said, very, very intelligent
somewhere
guy.
else, another house we've talked about had that. Was it Glensheen?
I think so. So Jack took a brief break from hotel development to serve in the Spanish-American War.
Oh.
Naturally, he commanded his own artillery regiment and therefore earned the rank of colonel. And he gleefully used this for the rest of his life. He was known as the Colonel. Yeah, just kind of awesome, actually.
I like it.
And it wasn't all work and no play for Jack. He owned a 250-foot yacht that could seat 60 people in its dining saloon.
250 feet?
Yep. That's a big ship.
Yeah, it is.
And by 1903, he owned 60 cars.
Oh.
I know.
What were they even making in 1903?
Pretty much the European cars.
Daimler. I know I should know
You should
because
know
I was
this.
just there.
You were just at the Mercedes
Museum.
Unfortunately, his marriage to Ava was not a happy one, and so he often took refuge in his toys and then later on in his laboratory, where he continued to be obsessed with machinery.
And the arms of other women.
Yes. Well, I don't know about that, but possibly, because that's kind of what those guys did. And like his predecessors, Jack was also interested in constructing personal residences. And it was in 1902 that he decided to remodel the house at Ferncliff, where he had been born. And why don't you tell us a little bit about the improvements that he made there?
Well, Ferncliff was demolished in the 40s, so
Right.
I don't know anything about the house.
Yes. Well, Ferncliff, he remodeled it.
And I can tell you why it was demolished.
Okay. Well, first let's say Ferncliff was like a 60-acre estate that was sort of piecemeal put together by his father.
Yeah, and there were lots of different sort of, not outbuildings, there were just lots of
Random buildings.
structures on the estate, including a tea house and a farmhouse and Ferncliff and the Astor Court, which is what I know about.
Yeah, that's what
Because it's the most impressive. And
so Ferncliff was kind of an Italianate style house that was built in the 1860s.
It had a partially wrapping around porch. I mean, it was really lovely. It's a shame that it was torn down.
Right. So he apparently remodeled that